please. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the orientation session for a clinical data science program here at Solars. My name is Dr. Praveen Barala. I'm a director of clinical operations working for the world's largest pharmaceutical company. Here at Solars, I train advanced clinical trial management and clinical internship. Today, I just want to share the importance of clinical data science, especially in clinical trials, from an end user point of view. Since I use and clearly liaise with all clinical data scientists within my big organization. So I just want to share some of my input, and then I'll hand over to my fellow colleagues who are going to take into the details of the program. And then, as Geeta mentioned, like after the completion of the session, we open the floor for any questions you guys might have. So that's the agenda for today. If you see clinical data science, like you hear this term a lot now, you'll also hear some fancy terms like um, um, artificial intelligence or data visualization. Data is very important in pharmaceutical industry, as you already know. It's one of the highly regulated industry, and everything has to be documented. Period. Um, Earlier we used to say like big data, metadata. Data plays a very vital role, especially when it comes to the registration trials. Like the clinical trials itself, it's like a business domain where you either work on the investigational product right from the discovery all the way to the registration products. So in order for you to substantiate your claim, you need to make sure that you have a credible data to submit to the FDA in United States and healthcare authorities in different countries. So data means a lot for pretty much every industry, but it plays a key important role in clinical trial industries, especially pharmaceuticals. Now, why we are saying clinical data science? Because it evolved just like a discipline, self-discipline. It itself is a humongous organization where you have a lot of cross-functional departments working in collaboration within the same data management. Just like we say IT in a vague term, you have like data management. Within that, you have different cross-functionalities who work in collaboration to have a meaningful stream to the data, the way the data flows from one system, the way the data integrates between different systems, so that we are able to substantiate our claims and bring all the novel products into the market. Here, we target to train students in data science discipline, especially within the modules which I'm showing on the screen. We will be training you in different modules, but not limited to data mining with R, machine learning with Python and SAS. We also train on data visualization, Tableau, and some of the organizations use Spotfire. So that's our program. And as I mentioned, my colleagues will go in detail about the curriculum and how the modules work. Next slide, please. In addition to the training, you also get a career services. So just to mention Solars, we are in the business for past 12 years. We are a organization. Now it's a college pretty much. We have advanced programs and we also have a master's program. So that being said, we give continuous support for the students after completion of the program. When doing internship, our career services will approach to you to go ahead with resume preparations and LinkedIn trainings. Before the COVID, we used to have the networking sessions right there in Menlo Park location, but now everything became virtual, but still we extend the same service year after the training and even during the training and when you're actually doing the clinical internship as well. Next slide, please. Now, a lot of questions will come like, who has to, who are eligible to take this program? Anyone from life sciences, healthcare background, and since some programming is involved in it, and people from information technology, which includes like computer science, biotechnology, bioinformatics, health informatics, engineering, and mathematical stats and biostats, and any other kind of programming background will be a better fit for this whole module. And then people who don't have a programming experience, kind of they can. It's not. I'm not saying it's an impossible task, but need to work a little harder. But as long as you understand the business and the process flow, it shouldn't be a problem. Next slide, please. Not going into the actual dollar amounts, it changes, right? It all depends on demand and supply. But if you see, there are so many lucrative career opportunities within the pharma, and within that, you have more in clinical data management and information technology services. Because of the COVID-19, this is one of the industry that actually needs more workforce, because we already have COVID-19 treatment trials and COVID-19 vaccine trials. So that being said, like a lot of trials opened up, so there's a humongous demand for resources, and especially like people are getting to have these accelerated trials with abbreviated applications. So we need someone to work on capturing the data, analyzing the data, and supporting the data to the healthcare authorities. So that being said, if you don't have to um, um, trust me or anything, but you can just go into the Google and see like how many job opportunities are there for data management, and within that, in the data science paradigm. That being said, like we will target, like there are so many students with different kind of backgrounds. So we have entry level positions to mid management to leadership roles. But again, it all depends on like depending on the organization, you have multiple layers. But you can start with data analyst, and then you have data management leads, data delivery leads, and then actually you can go into a more focused area about data science, like a principal data scientist. And then, or sometimes you can go to the statistical programming side, who works in conjunction with biostats teams, especially because once the clinical trial has been concluded, or even during the interim analysis, the data management and biostats will work in conjunction to get those data sets to the clinical and medical writing team, so that they can come up with a clinical study report or synopsis. So there are some entry level positions, there are mid management and leadership positions. So we are not targeting a position, we are training you on the processes. That being said, there are students who have little to no experience at all, who might be a seasoned employee. So once you understand the process, once you try to bridge that gap, you decide, what positions you want to target for. So we don't want to stop or hinder your prospects. So we're going to train you on the processes, and we're going to train you on the systems to how to deal with those processes. So based on your experience, education, competency, and skill set, you decide like what positions you want to apply based on the opportunities you get along. Next slide, please. So that being said, I just want to give a quick introduction about the high end, very high level introduction about clinical trials, because even if you work in IT or data management or any kind of interdiscipline, you need to understand the core business, right? Without understanding the process flow, you don't know like what you're doing. So you need to understand the process flow, but you need to understand the business as a whole. So when it comes to clinical trials, whenever we talk about clinical, the word clinical involves human subjects, right? So once we get an approval from the FDA to continue with the clinical trials, we actually go through different phases. So likewise, in clinical trials, we expect like 4 different phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Now, there are some more sub phases like phase 2A, 3.
Sorry, Dr. Praveen, we lost you. Dr. Praveen, can you hear us?
2B, 3A, and 3B.
Sorry, Dr. Praveen, to interrupt. There is. Sorry about that, guys. There have been a little technical issue. Is joining back. Dr. Praveen, can you hear us?
Hello, are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, Dr. Praveen. Now it's clear. Yeah.
Not sure where I left. I didn't even realize that I've been disconnected. But just to start this slide, we have 4 different phases of clinical trials: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Whenever we talk about clinical trials involves human subjects, right? So in phase 1, what we are concentrating on, phase 1 is an early phase trials where you are trying to prove the safety profile of your drug to make sure that your drug is safe. And how are you going to substantiate that? Again, through credible data. And what kind of data? Safety data, like adverse events and serious adverse events. The lower the number of adverse events, the more safer is your drug, right? So that's how we try to capture all the adverse event and serious adverse event data, and then we analyze the data and submit the data to the FDA, asking permission to go to the next phase, which is phase 2. What is phase 2? Again, targeted towards therapeutic area and diseased population. What you're trying to prove in phase 2, the safety in a larger population, but also the therapeutic efficacy. We want to make sure that if the drug works or not. Just like the way we proved safety, how are you going to prove efficacy profile of your drug? Number of positive results. We call a fancy term called observable response rate or overall response rate. So every drug has its own side effects. Do you guys agree, right? But FDA only gives permission to the drugs when you shows substantiating data about benefit risk profile, saying that your therapeutic efficacy is like 80% or with the risk profile of 20%. So again, once you conclude with your phase 2, you submit data to the FDA, asking permission to go to phase 3. And phase 3, a much more larger population where you are trying to prove the commercial viability of the drug. And at that point, you submit an NDA application to the FDA, asking permission to actually market the product. So if you see all these phases, what is the important thing that you need to prove to the FDA or health authorities in different countries? Data. It's not only data, but we have to make sure that how we are obtaining the data, meaning data integrity is very important. The way you obtain data from different systems is very important. And once the drug is already in the market, we still continue to obtain data from different sources like registration, patient registries, and then online networking, social media, primary care physicians, survey monkeys. And FDA also has like adverse event reporting system. What you're trying to get is like the long-term safety profile of the drug to see how the drug is behaving when the drug is already in the market, when the drug is being prescribed to general population like pregnant, children, immunocompromised, senior citizens, people with multiple diseases. So again, what you're obtaining here, data from multiple sources. And that you want to make sure that your drug is performing well and there are no long-term safety effects. Because how often we see in the market that this particular drug has been removed from the pharmacy shelf like 10 years within the market, right? So that's where the phase 4 or post-marketing or long-term safety trials really comes very handy once the drug is already in the market. Next slide, please. It's a kind of a busy slide there, but just want to orient you, like this particular picture tells you like how data comes from different sources into the clinical trials and how we kind of mine the data and how the data is reported into different portals or and then to different entities. So as I mentioned, like we expect data from multiple sources. The first one is clinical subjects, right? Once we treat the patients, we're going to get data from patients' physical examinations, laboratory data. We're going to get from their CAT scans, EKGs, right? So we get humongous amount of data from the examining patients. Then we're going to get data from clinical operations. Then we will also get safety data. So we have clinical database where we capture all the information into an online electronic tool, which we call it as EDC system, electronic data capture. But in addition to that, if the patient is experiencing any kind of adverse events or serious adverse events, we capture that data into the safety database. So we get data from multiple entities, from patients, from laboratories, from EKGs, and then nowadays we are also using ePros, electronic patient reported outcomes. Like because of the COVID-19, some patients might not even go to the hospitals. So what's going to happen? We are sending them the devices where the patients can directly enter data, the way they are performing, their quality of life questionnaire, and then even their dosages, if it is a manual pills, they enter all those into eCOA, which is like electronic patient reported outcomes. And that will be connected to the server, and we're going to get directly the data remotely. You don't have to verify on site, it can be obtained remotely. And then we have data from the clinical registry, which is clinicaltrials.gov, where you have to register all the clinical trials from all the pharmaceutical companies in the United States. Website is managed by NIH, National Institute of Health, right? In addition to that, we have data from vendors, central testings. We have medical imaging, right? We get data from them, and then we get data from centralized laboratories. We get data from pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic samples. So bottom line, we get data from multiple sources within the clinical trials. And then there need to be a system where we're going to capture the data.
Web.
And the most important thing is like systems are important, but systems doesn't really hold good unless someone enters the data into it, right? And most important is the efficient way of using the systems is when the data, gets integrated between the systems. When I'm talking about like a mega trial where you have like 10,000 patients with a 10-year database lock, you can't do everything manually. It has to be automated. For that, the systems need to talk to each other, and the data needs to be integrated, seamlessly, so that everything gets along. And then finally, we get the concrete data for analysis and submissions to the healthcare authorities. Now, when you see on the right side, when we have a integrated database. From that, we can have like clinical and safety database. From there, we have reporting. Reporting into multiple entities. And now we have all data visualization, thanks to Tableau or Spotfire or other kind of data visualization tools. Like for me, for example, as a director maintaining my own portfolio of early and late development oncology, I liaise with data scientists every day, but I need to understand how I am viewing my data, because I need to make some business decisions. What kind of patients I'm looking at even before I want to start my clinical trial. What kind of patients we can pre-screen. How I can get the data from the hospitals where we can get these kind of patient population so that I don't need to invest more time and effort and resources thereafter. I can utilize the data for feasibility analysis to see how, is it feasible even to go ahead with this project? If so, who are my best resources? Where are my patients are? Where are my hospitals? Who are the principal investigators who can really conduct these clinical trials? Now I need to know the timelines about the regulatory authorities, like how quickly I can get the approvals. And then my marketing strategy and my patient retention strategy. Everything will be, directly related to the data. And that's the whole concept of artificial intelligence, right? So the concept is like, as a business owner, I need to liaise with data scientists to get credible data so that I can make a better business decisions. And for that, we need, data science so that the data gets integrated between the systems can give me a good visualization for all the cross functionalities or the sectors I manage so that we can get a meaningful and a better business decisions. Next slide, please. So that being said, I want to end this topic to see why we are doing all this. And now because of the COVID-19, the importance of the data science is very, it's much more critical. The reason behind There are more monitoring restrictions, there are more travel restrictions. Patients might not be going to the hospitals, but still there are certain patients who needs these drugs. 99% of the cancer treatments are part of the clinical trials. As long as they're getting clinical benefits, someone has to give access to those patients. Visiting nurses are going to the patients' houses, and then we are even shipping the drugs now. For all that, what you need, we need a credible data in place, right? So we utilize this data science to bring novel drugs into the market. And the most important thing is clinical trials are, before patients used to go to the hospitals or clinical research facilities for clinical trials. Now the future is clinical trials comes to the patients. The doctors, if I'm my primary care physician, if a patient comes in, I can offer clinical trials as part of the treatment. I can use data science to see the genetic lineup and then see, like, what drug really works better for them based on genomics, based on their family profile. It's all already driven as part of EMR, as part of the electronic health records. So when the patient comes in, I have a clear picture based on the data that's being presented to me to see what kind of drugs are in the market, what clinical trials can benefit my own patient. So instead of patient reaching out, clinical trials are reaching to the patient. That's the whole concept of personalized medicine or pragmatic medicine or real world medicine or evidence based medicine. And the backbone for that is a credible data that's obtained through an integral data science program. And that's the module we concentrate here at Solars. And that being said, I'm going to hand over it to my
David.
colleague
Is now joining.
Gary Robert. Will be taking you in details with what exact modules we have and how the training works. We see very extensive experience in as a research data scientist, especially in biostatistics, machine learning, deep learning. So that being said, I'm going to hand over it to you, Gary. Feel free.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Praveen. That's a great presentation. That being said, let us hand over the session to Professor Gary.
Yeah. Good evening, guys, and thanks, Dr. Praveen, for wonderful session on what exactly is clinical data science. So that was really good. And yeah, just to give you a intro about myself, I've had about 12 plus years of experience in the field of data scientist, and I've worked on a lot of machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and computer vision applications. We've been implementing them from the scratch, where you start with your data collection and then finally get into it. And yes, I've done my post graduation in data science, and also I'm a certified associate developer for Apache Spark 3.0, and a lot of other certifications. Have not added them here. So this being the short introduction about me. Let's get started about what we will be covering as part of data mining and this data science program. Okay, so hope you guys can see the screen, and I would just want to take your time here on the picture which is there on the slide. So if you see, there are these different big market players like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Uber, and Amazon, right? So what are they all depending on at this point of time? So they are all depending on data. As Dr. Praveen mentioned, data is going to play a very, very vital role whenever you are into data science. So some of the common statements that we hear very frequently these days are like data science is the most sought after job of the 21st century. Most of us definitely feel this at this point of time. And if not, we've heard it from the media, we've heard it from our fellow colleagues, we've heard it in a lot of other places. And the second one, again, data is the new oil, right? So that is also a common statement that is being told by a lot of people. And yes, why data science has emerged over the last few years is because of the data. Huge data is getting generated every single day. And that is the reason we have data science taking up its speed or picking up its speed and getting into the market. Next slide, please. Okay, so a quick question. Why is data science so popular today? So I've just taken only the three aspects as to why data science is popular, but there are n number of reasons as to why data science is popular, but these three are the main ones. First thing is flood of available data, right? So there are organizations where
Pardon the
they have.
interruption. Can you please advance the slides? We're still viewing your background and the slide about you.
I am on the correct slide. Do everybody see the same slide? Sorry for the interruption, Professor. Are you able to see the why data science popular today slide?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Forgive me then. It's maybe my own system. Pardon me. Please
No
continue.
problem. Thank you. That's okay. Sorry for the interruption, Professor. Please continue.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I've just chosen the three main reasons as to why data science is popular today. So the first one is the flood of available data. So we've all seen that, right? So we like every organization is having such humongous amount of data, and some of the organizations still do not have an idea as to how they want to use them. So that is where data science is actually picking up, and that is why a lot of openings for a data scientist, a data analysts are all coming into picture, right? And if you see the social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, so they are all generating huge amounts of data on a daily basis, and it ranges up to something like petabyte, exabytes of data, right? And they would want to still analyze, and they would want to understand what exactly is happening. And that is where one of the reasons why data science is picking up. And the second one, the very important, increasing computational power and cheap hardware cost. So we all know, right? So most of us would have used a hard disk or a pen drive, right? So way back 10 years down the lane, if we had to buy a pen drive, it was like so costly for us, right? So it was it was too costly for us, and then we used to just imagine buying a 2 GB of a pen drive used to cost so much for us then. But coming to the present day scenario, you can really understand that 2 GB of pen drive is nothing. You can easily buy it anywhere, and you might probably get a 64 GB pen drive or a 128 GB pen drive for the same cost now. So that is what is exactly happening. The hardware cost is becoming very cheap, and also the computational power, right? So initially, like we were all looking at only CPUs, which is nothing but your central processing units. Now we have something called as GPUs, which have come into place, which is nothing but graphical processing units, which can process data at really fast speeds, and a lot of other options are
Wanda
available.
Webb
Okay,
is
so
now exiting.
and also the third one, growing progress is in available algorithms. So we have a set of algorithms specifically designed and democratized, so that you do not have to really get into the nuances of understanding and implementing the entire algorithm by yourself. You already have predefined libraries which are available. Just pick them up, plug into your code, and then you can start executing your uh, algorithms. So these are the main reasons as to why data science is gaining popularity these days, and that is why most of the organizations currently are looking for skilled data analysts and data scientists. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so I just want to give you a gist of what data science is, and what exactly is data science. So that is the one what we will be discussing now. So data science is the science of you collecting the data, you storing the data, processing the data, describing the data, and modeling the data. So the point number 2 to 6 is what is important, and what defines that would be a problem, right? So you are in an organization, and then you would encounter a problem statement basically, and then once you have the problem statement, then you start really digging around it. So you would want to gain some insights, and you would want to try to solve that particular problem. And how do you do that? You do it from step number 2 to 6. So as Dr. Praveen mentioned, right, so whenever we are discussing about the clinical trials, you need to collect the data, right? So collecting data, we have different sources, and from different sources, we will be collecting the data. And then it's just not good that, okay, you collect the data and then you just leave it as it is. So it is very important for you guys to actually organize it and store it somewhere. Mostly, we will be going through some of the databases or data warehouses. And currently, we have everything on cloud, where we talk about data lakes, where it contains all your structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data, right? So this is the place where you store your data. And then the third step, you will get into the processing of the data. Uh, the data could be in its raw form. So you would want to really convert it from a raw form to a little bit of a fine form, as to use it and start using that for further analysis, right? And the fifth one is describing data, one of the most important thing. We will always see how to describe the data. Like, say, for example, you might be having some numerical value columns. So how do you describe data? What is the mean of that particular column? What is the variance of that particular column? So a lot of ways in which you can try to describe the data. And you can also see something like what is the minimum value which is present in that particular column, what is the maximum value that is present in the column, right? So these are very much important, because you will really understand what exactly the data contains, right? So that is one of the most important steps. And finally, the last step would be the modeling data, where you use different algorithms which are available, like classification algorithms and regression algorithms and clustering algorithms, and then finally try to solve your problem that is on board, right? So this is the process of data science. We will be going through most of these phases. And coming to the path, what everybody would want to follow, right? So that is what is uh, the main crux of this particular course. So firstly, we will be starting off with programming and databases. When I say programming, we will be discussing R programming and Python programming. And most of you guys might have this question, okay, I've never done any programming in my past, and then what is it for me? But I would definitely give you this assurance that it really does not matter if you've not done any bit of programming till now. You just have to follow what is being taught here, and we will be starting from the basics, and slowly we will be advanced, slowly we will be moving into the intermediate concepts of programming, and then on to the advanced concepts of programming. So you do not have to really worry that, okay, we've not done any programming, so how do we fit in? So that is always there. And we also would be discussing about databases. So that is where you actually go ahead and store your data, right? Once you've stored your data, it's of no use if you've just stored your data. You need to understand, you need to analyze, and then you need to describe what exactly is there in that particular data. So for that, we use something called as structured querying language, called as SQL. And you will be going through this MySQL, and then you will be able to write these simple queries to fetch the data, to modify the data, and do derive a lot of insights on that particular data. So this would be the first step that we would be taking as part of your data science journey. And the next step would be visualization. So once you have your data, the most important thing would be to visualize it. Like, say, suppose most of the business and business stakeholders or your clients really would not understand if you just present them Excel and then show them that, okay, these are the profits that we have, or these are the losses that we have. So obviously you need to have some kind of a visualization where people can easily grasp as to what exactly is happening. So what do I mean by visualization? It's a simple thing. Rather than just writing, we have had a profit of say about 100 million dollars. So instead of we just writing it, we will probably try to have a plot or a bar graph or a pie chart or something visual which people can actually receive it well, right? And also the other important thing is we will also be creating dashboards. So what are dashboards? So you have a lot of filters. You can probably try to click on some of the filters, and then once you've done with choosing all the filters, it will probably populate what kind of a data is available for the filters that you actually had. So this is what we will be learning as part of visualization. And coming to the third one, we have statistics. Very, very important concept. There's always a doubt, and there's always a lot of confusion around people that do we really need maths or statistics for learning data science? Yes, this is very true. We would need some amount of maths and statistics for carrying out our data science journey. So we will be starting from the very basics of stats. We will be understanding what is mean, what is median, what is mode, what is the variance, what is standard deviation. Some of the basic descriptive statistics we will be covering through. And then we move on to inferential statistics. Very, very important concept for most of you guys. Why? Because we've all seen the COVID era now, right? And clinical trials are picking up. Now, if I have to ask you guys a question, so we know that how does one actually choose the patients or the people for clinical trials, right? So we really do not know. We can't have some biased way of choosing the people. So that is where your inferential statistics would actually come into picture, where you actually try to do conduct some experiments, and then you try to pick your samples or basically the subjects for this particular clinical trials. And then after you've actually done your clinical trials, like how do you actually say that, okay, the medicine is effective or not? So that all these things would actually come into inferential statistics, where we will be covering something like distributions. We'll be talking about hypothesis testing, which is very, very important. Like we would be saying that, okay, I am 99% confident that this particular medicine would work on any given sample. So that is what we will be discussing as to how we can arrive at that confidence level to declare that, okay, this medicine is going to be 99% effective in the market. So all these things would be covered as part of your statistics. And then finally we will be coming into the machine learning. So as part of your machine learning, we would be covering different algorithms, and we will be understanding the three main areas. Basically we will be working on your regression algorithms, classification algorithms, and clustering algorithms. We have linear regression, logistic regression, support vector machines, and decision trees, random forests, and some of the other algorithms also, which we've not mentioned here. But yeah, we will be having that in your curriculum. And also we will be understanding what would be the best model to choose in which situation. So that becomes very critical, because you can't, like, I have a data set, and then finally I try to apply three different types of algorithms on that. And how do you actually say that, okay, which one is the best, right? So for that you have something like the hyperparameters tuning, which will actually come into picture, where you actually understand what are all the different parameters which are involved as part of that particular algorithm, in which you can probably say that, yes, this is the algorithm that I would be choosing for this particular data set, and I would be implementing that in the production, right? So all these things we would be covering as part of your entire curriculum, and we will be able to help you out phase by phase. And then each of these phases, right, starting from your programming, your visualization, your stats, and your modeling, all are interconnected to one another. You can't skip this, because whenever we are doing modeling, we might be using R programming, right? So if you do not have the knowledge of R programming, then it might become difficult for you to really understand how this algorithm works and how to code this particular algorithm. So that's why we do not want to jump straight away into any uh, further topics. We would be starting with programming, and then slowly we would actually move through the ladder, right? Next slide, please. Okay. Some of the projects that you will be executing by yourself is listed here. Okay. And these are very important projects. And then this will give you a clear insight of how one could experience the data sets, or how one could get that real experience on the projects which are available currently in the organizations, right? So we would be working on something like predicting the customer churn, irrespective of the domain. So here we would be discussing on a telecom domain, but irrespective of the domain, churn is a process which is common to all the domains, right? So customer churn is very like very uh, uncommon feature that every organization has to go through, right? Losing people is not tough. So we will be understanding who are the people who are going to churn in the next, say, about 3 months or 5 months. So this is one of the projects, and we will also be discussing about credit default prediction. So basically, what could so happen is like we all know, we go to a bank, we want a loan to be given on us, and then finally, like we would want to pay the EMIs, right? So the banks are a little bit skeptical whether they would want to offer a loan to me or not. How do they decide that, right? So I could probably go ahead and default on paying my EMIs. So all these things could actually factor in. So we have the data, we try to understand from the data, and then finally we try to predict, right? So this is one of the use cases, or this is one of the projects that you guys would be doing by yourself. And also there is HR analytics. It could be the clinical part of it, or it could be any other domain. We would be discussing about the attrition part of it, and then how to avoid attrition, how to try to reduce the attrition. So a lot of projects are coming in. So these are some of the projects which I've actually listed down here. But if not, we have a lot of other projects. And the most important thing is each and every module that we would be covering, be it the programming, be it the stats, be it the visualization, or be it the machine learning. For each of the module, after we cover each of this module, you would be given an assignment to complete. And it would be very, very important for you guys to go ahead and attempt these assignments and finish them, because ultimately at the end you would be having one project which would be like connecting the dots through the entire journey of your curriculum. So that's why it becomes very important that, okay, whatever assignments are given, you try to do it, and then finally come back to us in the next session. Yeah, so this would be from my end, and yes, it's really a challenging journey, but also a very interesting journey. And I would always want you guys to pick this up in terms of not only in terms of the money factors, because that keeps changing, but ultimately data science is the future, because we're playing around with a lot of data, and a lot of things are happening around the world. So I would want to say that, okay, think about it, and then yes, you could probably make it. And this is not tough. It's gonna be a easy journey, but you need to be dedicated and you need to be focused. And yeah, here I would probably want to give away my mic to Mr. Prabhu, and he would be going on with the statistical analytical system, the SAS part of it. And thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gary. That is a wonderful explanation of our modules. Thank you very much. And with this being said, let me hand over the session to Akash Sharma. Professor, could you please continue with the clinical SAS module?
Thank you, Geeta, and thank you, Gary Robert, for your sessions. And my name is Akash Sharma, and I'm a clinical SAS programmer. I'm involved into SAS programming in terms of clinical domain, and I have a vast experience in SAS in life science background. and I have been involved into CDM and biostatistics all throughout my career. I have about 10 years of experience. Apart from my programming, I am also involved into training of the students in my organization, and I've been training students in various uh, domains, as well as in this particular course, we are actually going to see in SAS, what are we going to see? We are going to see base SAS, advanced SAS, and domain part of the clinical SAS. Next slide, please. Okay, coming to we have been hearing from Dr. Praveen, and we have also heard from Gary a lot about something which I have been hearing from those from their mouth is that data. It's all about data and data they were all speaking. So in clinical trials, throughout all the phases of the trial, there is a lot of data being collected for because these trials are being conducted in human beings, and when this particular data is collected, it was saying something said about storing it, and something it's said about analysis, and something about reporting. So in order to achieve all these things, Gary said about R programming, but we have another tool that is SAS. So what does SAS stand for? SAS stands for Statistical Analysis System. It is a computer programming language and one of the most important statistical software tools. It is used to save data from any source which follows a database format. So in the database format, you have heard about the EDC that Dr. Praveen had said, and sources are like it is coming from various places, like uh, data is coming from flat files, data is coming from Excels, uh, internet, social media, and these are all the sources of the data. And SAS is a powerful and flexible statistical package that runs on many platforms, including Windows and Unix. SAS is a programming language that works around four tasks. Those are nothing but data access. So when your data is available in different formats, you need to access the data. Then you need to manage the data, that is called as data management. Then you need to analyze the data, that is data analysis. Then finally you have to report it, that is data reporting. SAS analytics science is rapidly growing industry and requires trained professionals across functional domain of healthcare, pharma, and IT. So what are we? What are the concepts of clinical SAS program curriculum? What are we going to learn in this particular curriculum? We are going to learn about the base SAS. So in base SAS, what are we going to see? We are going to see introduction to SAS, base SAS, and how are we going to create the SAS data sets? How are we going to do migration of data as it is in different uh, uh, sources of data, and how once we get the data into SAS, how are we going to do the manipulation of that? And we in SAS we have lots of functions, and we are going to see how we are going to use each of these functions and at what circumstance we are going to use those functions while analyzing our data. We are also going to see some of the statistical procedures that are required for reporting, and we are also going to see graph, which was also in other terms as visualization for better understanding of data representation. So once we are done with base SAS, we are also going to move into advanced SAS. Advanced SAS is a bit a step ahead of base SAS, and in that we are going to see mostly of macros. In this particular advanced SAS, you are going to start implementing your macros and proc SQL steps, which is a part of advanced SAS. You're going to do this as an additional step to your base SAS, and how macros are going to help you in your reporting, because macros and proc SQLs are going to make your life more easier in when you are analyzing a large chunk of data. So these two, base SAS and advanced SAS, is going to actually help you with your analyzing of the data. And in the third curriculum, that is nothing but clinical SAS, we are going to see the clinical research and how data is collected. We are going to see how reporting of clinical trial data happens. We are also going to see the process of validation, which is nothing but the cleaning of the trial data when it's being collected in various places, and a lot of edit checks. And the most important one in this particular clinical SaaS is you're going to learn about CDISC, which is nothing but your SDTM and ADAM. These are nothing but the standards that are required by the FDA while presenting your data to them. So in that CDISC and SDTM, we are going to see what mostly about the adverse events and demographic data. Adverse events are nothing but the side effects that actually happen during the course of the trial, and due to maybe due to the drug or may not be due to the drug. And demographic data is about the pool and the population of the data that are actually undertaking that particular trial. So next slide, please. So let us see, now that we have known what SaaS is going to do and what are we going to learn in SaaS, we also should know applications of SaaS in the industries. So we have vast industry usage of SaaS, and it is used in the retail, finance, banking, clinical, and healthcare. So, but in this particular curriculum, we are going to mainly focus on clinical data. So I have a table right here, and in this particular table, you can see the two rows, that is others and pharma. And in other, you can see a lot of social media kind of companies that actually use SaaS, as well as we have some banks here at RBS and HDFC and ICICI Bank. All these actually use into banking sector. So apart from that, on my right, you can see the pharma companies which actually use SaaS. So you can see Novartis, you can see IQVIA, PPD, Cognizant, and all these companies which make use of SaaS while analyzing their clinical trial data. Next slide, please. Coming to the project details, I'm going to keep it very short here, and we are going to, as I said, we are going to learn about clinical SaaS, the domain part. So we are going to work on SDTM dataset creation and validation, and also about the ADAM dataset and creation validation for demographic. EX is nothing but the exposure. Exposure here, exposure data is nothing but about the complete details of your drug, what that drug is about, and what on which particular visits you're going to give them, what dosage of drug, and what. So it is completely depth information about the drug that is going to be that you're going to give to the patient. And adverse events is nothing but the side effects. So we are also going to see what are the side effects that happens during the trials of a particular drug. And SCTM is nothing but it's a first stage of data set that are created after you collect your raw data. And uh, after that, you are going to convert your SDTM datasets to ADAM data, which is next step. And in ADAM, again, we are going to see about the ADSL, ADEX, and ADAE. ADSL is nothing but you are again the advanced stage of your demographic data, and ADX is nothing but the next stage of your analysis dataset of exposure, and ADA is the next step of your AE dataset. So apart from these datasets, you are also going to work on tables and listing creation validation. Each of your you will be playing a role of a developer as well as a validator in order to understand how actually a clinical real-time clinical trial data is being handled in pharmaceutical companies in CROs. So as part of our learning, as and when we complete our chapters, I'm going to assign you small tasks based on that particular chapter, and you are going to do that particular assignment and get back to me in case you have any doubts. Also, at the end of the entire SAS curriculum, I'm going to give you a
David
end to
is now exiting.
I'm going to present you an end-to-end project where you are going to be involved into again creation of the data sets and presentation of the data sets for a particular project. So you're going to have an hands-on experience also as to how actually clinical trial data is being analyzed in a clinical trial. So that is all from my end, and I am handing over my the session to my colleague Suhas.
Thank you, Professor. That's a great explanation of our SAS module. With that being said, let me hand over the class to Professor Suhas, who would be dealing with your SQL and data visualization modules.
Thank you, Geeta, and thank you very much for my fellow colleagues. As we understood, we are covering the very comprehensive technical modules and being talked about many things. So myself was being around 12 years experience in the field of database and database engineering, and pioneered in the field of database management and worked with big MNC companies and been an enterprise architect for the large scale applications. And also I've been in the recent days as the technology is evolving, I'll also been passionate about learning or teaching the machine learning and the data analytics, especially the big data. I'm also the major training being conducted in the area of SQL, Python, and the Spark Big Data using the Scala and the Python. So next slide, please. Yes, we keep hearing the whole theory of this, the whole data science sits on the data. So it is important to understand how you collect, how you retrieve the data, and how do you manipulate the data and how you report it. The single tool we in the industry being widely used to deal with the data is about a common language. We call them structured query language. This is one of the major tool we deal with saving the data or retrieving or reporting. So you're going to learn a very depth of the subject, how you can manage the data, how when the data is collected, how that data is kept into a databases. That is only the repository where all the sources were generating the data. We process it and kept it in a very structural manner so that it will help us to retrieve whenever required, whenever you want to analyze. It is very easy to manipulate and also to do a reporting. So one of the as I said, it is SQL is the common tool probably used to navigate or talking to the databases. As part of that, we are going to learn in introduction to the database. As we expecting here, students coming from the various background, need not to worry. As our fellow faculties explained, we are taking from the very basics of all the programming language, including the Python, or in the same way, the SQL also be taken from the very basic level to understand the concept of the database, why the databases are evolved, why not the file system, what is an advantage of the database, how the tables are being structured, and that after learning those, we are going to in depth of how to have different commands, how we can use the data, what command we use, what data we command we use to retrieve, what command we use to change. We are going to understand them. And also the data would be sits in multiple places. As we've seen in the real time, may not be the data is always in one place. Here also, we organize the data to make it easier to manipulate or the management. So we're going to learn how we can extract the data from one table or multiple tables. We have different techniques, joins we use, and how to apply the filters, only the interested data, how to filter it, how to present it, how to aggregate it. It's very comprehensive language, and we are believe as good as learning the other programming like SAS or Python or R, the SQL also play a very important role. Around, I say, the weightage is we asking about the importance of SQL as part of the any program like a data science is about 20-25%. It has a definite weightage. We are going to spend good amount of time understanding these data management techniques, probably used for your data science curriculum. So, and also we are giving the very small concept about the procedural concepts we have, but it not necessarily we need to understand very depth, but we try to cover it in the complete path of the database. As we also said from all my fellow colleagues, it is very important to represent the data, because normal data we cannot, when you represent the data in the form of say graphs, it will be easy to communicate or easy to make the insights of it. So we are using one of the powerful tool, Tableau. This is also been taught in this curriculum. So here our intention is to be not to teach only the intermediate basic levels. All these modules we are going to teach you to the subject to the intermediate levels, so that the Tableau as part of it is also being used to create a multiple graphs and also the dashboards that will really help you to, once the data is gathered, and it is written, we need to report, it is rather than representing in the form of Excel sheets or a plain text, we try to do it in a dashboards so that the management, or it makes a lot of easy to make the insights of it. So there's a very a good technique we are using here, the Tableau. So we are going to learn to the intermediate level using the SQLs and also the Tableau. We probably work on the data or the techniques being taught in our data science modules. We're going to use those and make the insights of it. So that's about the Tableau. So from this, probably I have to, this is the very basic introduction, what about we cover on the SQL and Tableau. So I'm handing over to the Geeta back to have these slides to walk through the. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for the great explanation. Uh, Thank you for joining us today, everyone. I hope you all understood the overall outline of the program, especially when we start dealing with the clinical research. It will be a small module for you. Later on, we'll go with R, machine learning, R and Python for machine learning and data mining, and then SAS. And then after that, we'll go through SQL and Tableau with data visualization tool. All these tools would be dealt in this clinical data science program. They are given in 7 different modules to you. This program duration would be anywhere between 5 to 6 months. And as we know, ours is a hybrid program. All our classes would be held in the platform, either in the Teams or WebEx platforms. It's a hybrid program. Usually it would be in person and online, but due to the current COVID situation, right now all our sessions are online. And all the softwares which you will be working in the sessions, you would be given access for 1 year. Even after the program completion, you can still work with that. And during classes, you would be given with assignments, quizzes. We have a student portal database for us. Once the admission process is done, we'll give you access to that, through which you will be communicating to our faculty. You will get access to the program content, and all your exercises will be held in the learning management system. Okay. And to give more insight into the program, usually we have weekdays and weekend sessions. Weekday sessions would be in the evenings, probably after 6:30, not before that, just to accommodate the working individuals. We design in such a way, but we sometimes do have Saturday sessions too. We don't have Sunday sessions, but Saturday sessions will be held somewhere between 10 o'clock to 2 or 3, based upon your curriculum. Once you sign in for the program and the admission process is done, we'll give you a schedule for each and every module. At least the next 1-2 months will be planned, and we'll give an assigned date for each faculty. Once you sign in, you'll get all the details of how many classes and what days you have. So it'll be helpful for you to plan your calendar and everything. Okay. And with that being said, let me open the floor for questions. If anybody has any questions, we have Dr. Praveen, we have Professor Gary, we have Professor Akash, and we have Professor Suhas here. Any questions regarding any programming language, please. You can unmute yourself and speak. If you're not able to unmute, you can either drop a message to us.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I think it was a really good summary of what you're able to offer. I just have a question in the data visualization component that was just presented. Is it only Tableau that you give assignments and work with in terms of teaching and examples, or will there be other opportunities for other software platforms? I'm thinking specifically of Power BI, which is the platform that they use on my job. If not, no problem. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Professor Suhas, would you like to take that question?
Yes, yes. As part of the curriculum, we have planned to have the Tableau, and also the very different techniques we have to also do a visualization as part of Python or also R. It comes with the tool, probably the preferred tool in this curriculum we are presenting within Tableau. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ameka. Does anybody have any questions?
Hello, this is Mary Walker. I have a general question. I believe the program is very comprehensive. As a person that's been working in analytics for quite a while, so I have two. I guess you could say I'll wrap it into one question. In terms of the program, you're covering uh, general data science techniques and clinical data science program.
Yes.
Will this program, well, I'll put it in a two-part question now that I think about it. So, what are uh, the recognized uh, data science certifications that are accepted in industry, and will this program be detailed enough to prepare us for taking those certification exams, and what kind, and I guess it's three part, and what kind of assistance would we get in trying to prepare for that?
Um, Dr. Praveen, would you like to answer the question?
Yes. Um, for certifications, the program does cover the curriculum that you need for the certification, but probably you need some of the instructional hours and also the work experience. But if it is not related to work experience or any projects, but if they ask for the project hours, then probably our internship should cover those hours. But strictly working at the modules of the program, that should cover your curriculum to prepare. But again, it's not the presentations or anything that you go through the program. Like sometimes you need additional resources, which you can always discuss with the instructors and faculty members, and also the admin staff, where they can give you more resources through our learning management system portal. But during the module trainings, the professors will always guide you towards the right goal to see, like, what additional resources you need. Most of them we already included in our LMS under resources sections, the websites which you need for. But just like in any other professional certification courses, like you have instructional hours, and then you have the reference modules where you need to look into it to get trained for those certifications. But if it comes to any kind of project-wide experience, even if it is a simulated case studies, that project hours you can use it for your eligibility for the certifications.
And what are the certifications that you believe are the most recognized in the field for data science and clinical data science?
Uh, Professor Gary, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to the SAS, sorry, the clinical data science part of it, right? So, in terms of SAS, we have the certifications for base SAS, advanced SAS, and also the clinical SAS. So, having this certification from the SAS itself would actually help you get into this particular field. So these are some of the certifications which you can actually pick it up after the curriculum is complete. Okay. And in terms of data science, because see, data science is a very broad term, right? So you have a lot of different programming languages, and you'll be learning about stats, and then you'll be learning about maths, and then you'll be learning about the machine learning algorithms, and so many other stuff. So there is nothing like a one particular certification which can really say that, okay, you are a certified data scientist. But having said this, if you actually get into the concepts of deep learning and other concepts where they have something like TensorFlow, Keras, and PyTorch, or some other advanced libraries, right? So they have some kind of a certification available for that. Like if you want to become a TensorFlow developer, there is a certification available for that. But as a whole, in a data science, you really do not have one certification which can actually tell you that, okay, you're a certified data scientist and you can go about with it. Since it involves a lot of different tools, programming background, and then finally stats and mathematics background. So there's not one certification which is actually available.
Okay, that sounds good. So from what I'm hearing, SAS would be good, and
Yes,
I know about the SAS certifications.
correct.
And I'm also, so based on what you're saying, maybe I could combine SAS and Python.
Yes.
Okay, so okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Professor.
you.
Thank you. And we have some questions in the chat window um, asking about the financial commitment. Sorry, as our professors are involved, regarding financial commitment, admissions will reach out to you, Nick, and they'll give you all the details. And Emeka, I think you got your answer about the certifications. And I have another question asking that is this program open to those outside US? Definitely, it's an hybrid program. Even if you're staying outside of US, you can definitely do it. And I got another question. What help is the college going to offer for job placements? As Dr. Praveen discussed during the start of the presentation, Nick, we have a career service department at Solas. They would give you group sessions, group discussion. They'll help you preparing the resume, and you'll have mock interview kind of help from us. Definitely that help we would be providing. And I have a question from Sarah. Is this program for those who are new to the programming and data analysis? Dr. Praveen, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily about the experience. So as my other faculty colleague mentioned, you know, do you need to have, experience in programming before? Not necessarily, because we will be, you know, starting from the basics. But again, the faculty will go through the volume to see, like, what's the experience levels, their students have, so that they can pace their teaching accordingly. But to answer your question, that's not a hard and fast rule that you need to have experience. But if you have it, you'll be much more comfortable dealing with the modules. But at least you need, to get introduction to those programming. Even after you join, you can still, learn those concepts. But to get into the program, in fact, to get into the job, probably not a requirement. But as I mentioned, like, it's a program, data science, right? It's a discipline. It's not just a course where you are just learning a course and then getting a job. So that's a short-term benefit. But data science as a whole, it's like a self-discipline where if you learn all these concepts, you are talking about like five or different tools with, like, it's kind of like a master degree kind of curriculum which is condensed into a couple of months. So imagine, like, when you get experience with that along with the hands-on internship, when you go out into the market, you see the type of jobs you apply for. So you're not restricting only to one particular um, job, because you will be trained on the whole discipline. So you can apply for entry level to mid management to leadership, depending on whether you have experience in programming, you already have experience in IT sector in different companies. So that's how it works.
Thank you, Dr. Praveen. I have another question from Sunita. Will it be a capstone project including all the technologies and programming languages solving the real world problem? She would like to know about the projects. Professor Gary, would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, definitely. The capstone project or the final project, what we call, would be a very interesting and an exciting one. As I told you during the slides, right? So it's very important that we connect the dots. So I start off with my programming journey and then slowly move on to your stats and then finally get into the modeling part of it, right? So a problem statement would be given to you guys where you would probably start the understanding the problem first, and then finally you need to get into the process of collecting the data. And at times we would probably give you some data, and it might be in a very raw form where you need to start doing a little bit of exploratory data analysis, which is one of the things that we will be teaching you during the program. And then slowly you would have to derive some basics insights, or you need to do some kind of a descriptive statistics, and then finally get into the modeling and then choose which probably the algorithm would suit this particular data for solving this particular problem. So these are all separate dots which you need to connect, and then finally you would be able to present us with your insights on the data which is actually being given. So this would be a capstone project, probably going on for some days, and then you would probably sit and then you would be working on that, and then finally you would be presenting the insights. And also these insights could be presented either through Tableau, or if you would want to present it through any other visualization tool, that's fine. But as part of this curriculum we'll be teaching Tableau. So the entire journey would be condensed into one project where you would definitely be going through each and everything what we've actually covered in this particular curriculum.
Thank you, Professor.
This is Mary. Do you have team projects?
Professor Gary, would you like to answer?
Yeah, see, it depends, okay. But my advice and over the past years with the experience that I've actually got, what I would prefer is that you work on any of these projects individually, right? So when you team up, things can be in a different way. Like a person could have a thought in one way, and then there's another person who's got another different thought, and then they both might not match because this stream or this data science, right, is something like you would really want to understand the data, and then you would want to proceed with it. So everybody's thought process could be different. So my advice would be not to team up, and it would be better that you solve any of these projects or the problem statements given to you individually by yourself rather than teaming up. But if not, yes, definitely you guys can actually pair up with somebody who is actually enrolled for this program, and then you both can work together and then finally present the results.
Okay, I just asked that question not necessarily that I needed to work in a team, but I was thinking in terms of from a professional standpoint, we work in teams. So not for each project, but maybe for one project where you learn that collaboration within, the data science realm. But if but that's fine for me working individually. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We have another question. All IT people can do this kind of analysis, right? That's the question asked by one of the student. Professor Gary, would you like to answer that?
Yeah. Can I get some more light on this question? Because all IT people can do this kind of analysis, right? So, in terms of what is this, is what I just want to understand. So, Jyotsna, if you're here, probably you can unmute, and if you can let me know your question, it will actually help me to answer that.
What does I means why do one need to do this course? Because even when I did my MSIS course, they taught me the same thing, like with data. Uh, I registered only for one class. They taught us like Tabula, asked data analysis with using like Tabula and R Studio and all. uh, then what makes the difference between people who have some pharma background and doing this analysis, and people with different backgrounds and doing analysis flow? So I just want to know the difference between IT
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who doesn't have any medical background.
yeah. That's really a good question. So I would probably just give some insights to it. Okay. So the first thing in data science, right? So okay, let me give you an example. I'll just throw a data set to you, and I'll say that okay, start doing some analysis on it. The maximum what anybody can do is they can probably give me the descriptive statistics around it, or to some extent they can explore the data what is there, and then finally do some kind of a visualization, and then finally present it back to me. But until and unless you really know the domain of that particular data, you would probably not be able to solve any problem coming towards it, right? So every domain has to be first understood in a way it has to be understood, and then you will be able to solve the problems. Because it's very difficult if you do not really understand the problem. Like, so, okay, let me just give you a small example here. I'll give you a data set, and then I ask you a question that okay, I have certain columns in my data, and then finally I would want you to predict who is going to default the next EMI. So you can probably see the data, and then you can just build some algorithm and then present the insights to your client. But really, you might have not understood what are those columns, what exactly is the data which actually sits in those columns, and the entire gamut of that particular problem would be lost if you really do not understand what that particular domain is all about. So basically, this would be into a banking domain. You would be understanding what is like a credit risk and so many other things, and then you would be understanding, and then you would be solving your problem. So that is where it becomes very imperative that okay, you understand what that domain is, and that is where clinical also, right? So you will have to understand what the clinical domain is all about. Like as Professor Dr. Praveen explained, there are different phases of clinical trials, right? So you would have to understand at each phase what's going to happen, right? And for each phase there could be a problem statement which is already there, and then you need to answer it. Until and unless you really understand what exactly is happening in that particular phase, you would probably not be able to answer or give insights on the data what is actually presented to you. So this is the main difference, or this is where it is very important that you have an understanding of the domain and then go about with it. And that is how this particular program is actually designed, and we would be walking through the entire program.
So I have another question. If a person who worked in same analysis or data analysis in different domain, if they change their domain from like different domain to this domain, uh, uh, by using their experience, won't they get that expertise in that domain, like working for like few months or something without taking this course?
Uh, One thing which I would
Because
want to,
I
yeah.
think when people started to work, they eventually learn what domain they are working, because uh, ultimately when they started to work with that business logic, I think they will get familiar with domain
Um,
auto.
I can take this one, and then you can chime in, Gary. Um, yes, I do understand you're saying like you understand the techniques, and then it's about the business domain. It's like
Mhm.
just like any other question. For example, like you're saying, well, if I work in the job and then if I can get some couple of months of experience, that's what we are actually trying to mitigate here, right? People getting into the job, into that domain, or into that industry. Now, why people are going from one career to another career, or one company to another company, or one title or position to another one? It's because of the lucrative career opportunities. Now you're going from an IT is everywhere the same, right? The way you program is fine, but it all depends on which domain you're working on. And right now, pharma has a much more lucrative career opportunities. And then if you are really applying for a job, at least they need to know whether you really worked within the pharma. If not, what's your other alternative? Well, I didn't do the pharma, but I have those all concepts which you're asking for, but at least I did the right thing, that I got, trained on the business domain, and then also took these tools that align to pharma or medical device or consumer products within the healthcare. Then I will be a much more better fit even to take that interview call that goes to the next level. So in order for your resume to be sorted out through computers or through a recruiter, at least they need some kind of talking points to give you a call, right? I'm not saying like, it might be a case, but that's what people are struggling here, is to go to the next step. For everyone asks for experience, that's for sure. But in pharma, they really ask for experience. But if there is no experience, then obviously they're asking like, what else you have, how you're bridging that gap. Either show me something that you already have prior experience in some other domain, that's fine. But what did you do about not having experience in this particular business domain? Do you take a course? Okay, because this is one of the industry where they have to train you to the core, right? They have to do the company SOPs, protocol specific, then system related trainings. Someone has to really shadow you. That's when they're going to put you in individual projects. And that takes anywhere between 5 to 6 months, thinking that within a year you can get an experience. You can even go to another organization for much more prospect span position. But I see a GCP, mandates that someone needs to be trained to the core, because you're working for a pharma where it is having federal dealings with FDA and health authorities in different regulations. So that's the main point. But again, if you want to learn the course, it's just like asking, well, there are so many online, there's so many YouTubers, there are so many people who are actually, doing the systems. And then there were some questions about like, well, I took this in the university, but the difference between universities and institutions, I won't say it's Solars or anyone though. The only difference is like, you can take, course from the institution. First thing is cost. Second thing is about the one-on-one, the type of detail that they're going to give you with regards to the career. Universities, how often you see, even if you're faculty advisors, probably they will come and take a guest extensive lecture and then move on, right? How often you see that, especially in IT, that where you have to go through like every project, to make sure that you have that real-time experience. That sometimes it's challenging. I won't say like, I'm not generalizing terms, but you won't get that kind of exposure in a bigger universities where you are paying that much of a cost to get, but a degree matters, yes, obviously. But IT and any kind of information technology database, education matters, but it also comes with experience. If not experience, if there is no on-site experience, then at least you have a virtual experience. So you're trying to mitigate all those risks by having some kind of like education or some kind of hands-on experience to bridge that gap, so that you can move forward, and you can have some talking points. For example, well, I took your resume. Well, let's start the conversation. And first two questions are asked because I am working in the pharma. Obviously, my questions will be revolving around pharma because, I am investing so much of money in the data science. I'm building up a team where I want someone who already either have experience in data science, if not, at least they have experience in the pharma, because I cannot babysit them for another 5 or 6 months explaining what pharma is, what are phases of the trials are, like, what exactly I need from them at this particular point, because I'm starting a new feasibility study. I need the data right now, So I'm just giving you examples, like, it's tough. It's a debatable topic, but that's what people always see, like, and that's the value proposition Solar is going to bring, that they train, but they also give you a career support. But no one promises a job. I just want to make clear that on the orientation session, as transparent as possible. In fact, no one in the world can promise you a job. If someone is promising you a job, they are lying outright. Any organization, any kind of facilities, they only can train you, give you all the technical skills, all the competencies, core competencies, but end of the day, it's you that have to take that first interview call to the next level based on the prior experience you have, the education you have, and the skills you acquire all the way you go, and the competencies you possess, within your career. And those are the only driving factors. And I'm pretty sure you all, came across that. So I just want to point out there that, someone was asking about the placement rate too. I cannot discuss the placement rates here because it's a public domain, but we are a federal institution. You know, um, we also participate in the federal contracts and the middle states. So we need to have certain placement rate to be in the business, and to have your business license. We are in the business for the past 12 years, so you can understand that we meet those targets. Without those targets, you can't be in the business in this particular teaching, which actually it is in the higher education because we are a Solars college. Gary, you can chime in.
Yeah, Praveen. So that was a good thing. Yeah, and as I said that, right. So this is a debatable topic, right? So that's always there, and we really are not sure. But yes, as you told that once you actually are hired for a particular project, like we will not be able to babysit you for the next 5 or 6 months. You need to be like proactive from day one. So that is what most of the organizations are looking at this point of time. And having said that, so your domain knowledge would definitely play a very important role, and that is how you would probably want to get into this.
Thank you, Professor Gary. Thank you, Dr. Praveen. In the essence of time, we had to close the session, but definitely, as mentioned in the slide, reach out to our admissions and this number. If we need, definitely we can schedule a one-on-one session with our faculty to answer all your questions. In the essence of time, sorry, we had to stop it right now.
Just
Yeah,
want to close this with a couple of statements here.
sure.
Folks, I completely understand that you wanted to know about the data science because you might have come across this topic floating around in professional companies, and also in the ad boards, and also in networking. One thing I just want to say is, like, people doesn't really care what you did in the past, because there is no time for that. What they see is like what you're doing right now. You have a job, doesn't have a job, you have past experience, you're not into this, you don't have a domain knowledge, or if you didn't, they really not bother about it, because right now there's a lot of attrition, there's a lot of job turnover. If you see for a pharma industry, you're seeing like 19.6% job turnover. And if you go to a contract research organization, that's going higher up to like 48%. And what is the main cause for this job turnover? People are looking, that they're switching jobs. There are so many lucrative career opportunities there, and there's a huge demand for it. So they want resources. If you have experience, well and good. If you don't have experience, what did you do about it? Give me some kind of talking points. Give me something that I can hire you, or at least I can start the conversation. So that's the value proposition that you need to look for. You don't need to believe anyone, not me or anyone, because we are living in a world where you have, like, a lot of systems and data is out there, right? Do your own due diligence to see what's there. What kind of core competencies you need to get that job. Do you still have now? No. Okay, what it takes for me to get there. And if you think about it, and then you can search and mark around, and you see like how Solars can bridge that gap, how Solars can add to their value proposition. And if you think that's a fair chance, feel free to contact us. Will be more than happy to give you all the information you need. And as Geeta mentioned, like, if you want one-on-one, there will be our advisors will be talking to you. So as I mentioned, like, do your own diligence, and then if you think that we can be of any help, please let us know. And we sincerely appreciate all your time. I know it's really hard during COVID-19, dealing with your loved ones, family, and taking care of them, and especially this time where people sit for a family dinner and stuff. So we really appreciate your time, coming here and trying to know about our courses, and asking so many good questions. So really appreciate that. And then I hope that we'll have an opportunity to talk to you guys again soon. So thank you very much. Have a good night, and take care, folks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Praveen. Thank you guys for attending the session. The admissions will be in touch with you. For any information, please reach out to them in the below given email and the phone number. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now.
Is now exiting.